Hey guys, so we're moving on to Unit 7 now, and these are the 7.1 notes for Unit 7, which is all about parabolas, okay? So the first thing that we're going to learn about with parabolas is how to move or translate the parabolas. So we have vertical translation, which is moving up or down, and then horizontal translation, which is moving left or right. So the vertical one here is up or down. And then remember, horizontal is left or right. Okay, so now that we know that, we can fill in our little fill in the blanks here in the notes. If k is positive, as you have a plus k on the outside, then that is telling you to move k units up with your parabola. And if k is negative, then you're going to move k units down with your parabola. And again, in ALEKS, this will be actually pretty simple because you'll be able to click the parabola and move it. And same with the horizontal translation, except remember, this is opposite thinking. Okay, so anything that's on the inside, like when we did absolute value graphs, if it was on the inside of the absolute value, instead of moving right when it's a plus C, you would actually move C units to the left, okay? And then when it's a minus C on the inside, you would move C units to the right. So that is opposite thinking. Okay, so let's look at our examples. So when you're translating the graph of a parabola, it shows you a parabola, and then it wants you to translate it to y equals x minus 2 squared, okay? So the only thing that happened is that you had a minus 2 on the inside of the parentheses. So remember, minus 2 tells you to move the entire parabola right 2 because it's opposite thinking. So what you're going to do when you're doing this on paper is you're going to take all of these 5 points that you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're going to move them right 2. So every single one. So I'm going to start in the middle at 0, and I'm going to move that one right 2. And then I'm going to move this one right 2. So you got 1, 2 there. And then 1, 2 there. You have a point right here. You're going to move 1, 2 there. And 1, 2 there. And then once you make your points, you can draw your parabola. And that's moving a parabola right 2, or that's translating it right 2. In the next example, notice that we have y equals x squared plus 1. And that's on the outside, not on the inside of the parentheses. So that's telling you to move everything up 1. So you're going to move all of these 5 points up 1, and then you will have your final parabola. So your final translation. So if I move this one up 1, it's here. This one up 1, it's here. This one, and this one. So your parabola is going to look something like this. It moved up 1 notch. Okay? Then when you're translating the graph of a function, so not necessarily a parabola, it's still the same thing. You are still going to pick about 3 points, and you're going to move those 3 points. Or you're going to actually pick up the graph. So the first one, we have y equals f of x minus 3. So the minus 3 on the outside is a vertical translation, and it's telling you to move everything down 3. So if I pick 3 points on this graph right here, I'm going to move all those 3 points down 3 notches. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 down, 1, 2, 3 down, and 1, 2, 3 down. And I'm going to make my new points and make my new graph, my new translated graph. Okay, so that's what that one would look like. In the next example, translating this function, they want us to translate it to y equals f of x plus 3, and it's on the inside of the parentheses. So that's a horizontal translation, and it's opposite thinking, remember. So this is telling us to move left 3. So I'm going to take my points here, and I'm going to move them all left 3. I think I have about, 5 of them again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Move all of those points left 3, and then you draw your best picture. So if I move the bottom one left 3, I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got a point here. 1, 2, 3. I've got a point here. 1, 2, 3. There's a point there. 1, 2, 3. There's a point there. And 1, 2, 3. There's a point there. So if I draw my best imitation graph of the first one, it should look something like that. Okay? And I just moved everything left 3. In the next couple examples, we're going to translate a parabola in 2 steps. So basically all it's doing is it's combining the horizontal and the vertical translation. So we're going to be doing 2 things in one. So first we have an x plus 1 on the inside, and that tells us that's a horizontal translation. Remember, that tells us to move left 1. We also have a plus 4 on the outside, which is a vertical translation, and that tells us to move up 4. So all of these dots, we are now going to take all of these dots, these 5 dots, and do 2 things now. We are going to move them left 1 and up 4. So if I start over onto the left, I'm going left 1 and up 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my first point. Again, go to your next point and do the same. Left 1 and up 1, 2, 3, 4. Left 1 and up 1, 2, 3, 4. Left 1 and move 1, 2, 3, 4. Left 1 and move 1, 2, 3, 4. So then your new parabola should look something like this with the double translation or the 2-step translation. Same with the next example of the function. Notice this is a square root function. It still doesn't matter because even though there's no parentheses or absolute value, you still have something under the square root, and that counts as the horizontal translation. So that under the square root minus 1 is telling us to move right 1, and then the outside minus 3 is telling us to move down 3. Okay, so we only have 3 points to deal with here. So for these 3 points, we're going to move them right 1 and down 3, and then draw our new graph. So if I do that, I've got right 1, down 1, 2, 3. I got my 1 point here, right 1, down 1, 2, 3. Another point here, right 1 and down 1, 2, 3. And another point there, and then you draw your square root graph. Okay? So remember, all this is just translating. It's all just moving the equation. The last topic in this unit, or in this 7.1 lesson in Alex, is going to be now writing what the translation is. Okay? So you have to tell me what happened from the from the blue to the red, and then we have to write an equation from it. So if I look at the blue to the red, to get from the blue F line, I had to move right 2, okay? And then to get to G, I had to move up 4. So remember, a right 2 is opposite thinking, so that would be a minus 2 on the inside. And an up 4 would be a plus 4 on the outside of my equation, okay? So when I go to write my equation, I need to make sure I include these 2 things, and I need to make sure that I look at what my original equation is, because sometimes it can be square roots, sometimes it can be parentheses, okay, that I'm going to use, or even absolute values. So notice that my equation here is f of x is equal to negative square root of x. So I'm going to keep all of that information when I write my new equation. When I write the equation for g of x, I say g of x equals negative square root. The x is still in there. Now I'm going to input the minus 2 because I know that goes on the inside of my square root. And I'm going to input the plus 4 on the outside of my square root. So I just included my vertical translation on the outside, and I included my horizontal translation on the inside of my square root symbol. So this is how you would write your answer for that. Let's look at the next one. In the next one, we have parabolas, okay? So parabolas have the x squared. So if I look at my original equation, remember, I am not straying too far from there. All I'm going to do is I'm maybe going to add something on the inside of the parentheses with the x, and maybe I'll add something on the outside. But first I have to look at what it is that I'm going to do, or what it is that happened from F to G. So if I look from F to G, or from that F to G point, I moved right 2, okay? Also from that F to G middle point, I moved, oh look, up 4. So it's actually the same thing as before. I still moved right 2, which means I'm going to put a minus 2 on parentheses, and up 4 means I'm going to put a plus 4 on the outside, Okay, so it's the same numbers, but your equations are going to look a little different because one's a parabola and one is a square root graph. Okay, so we still have to put a -2 on the inside and we still have to put a +4 on the outside. So let's look at what this looks like. So our g of x here would be equal to, again, I'm going to rewrite what I have in my f equation, -1/2. Then I'm actually going to open up parentheses and put in x minus 2 because that tells me to go right to. And I still have the squared with it. Don't lose the squared because that's what makes it a parabola. So I put in the -2 that told me I would go right to. And then I'm going to put the +4 on the outside that tells me that I'm going to go up 4. So notice I included both of my pieces. I included the -2 and I included the +4 on the outside. Okay, so this would be our final answer. Take your time with this, and as always, let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.